UFC Sao Paulo took place over the weekend, headlined by the guys next to me, Derrick Lewis and Jailton Almeida. I did a full card recap, gave out my own awards, talked about each of the fights. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. I posted it yesterday. Today we're getting into matchmaking. These are all the people we're doing it for. We've got Eduardo Mora, Denise Gomes, Angela Hill, Vitor Petrino, Elvis Brenner, Kyle Baralho, Gabriel Bonfim, Nicholas Dalby, Derrick Lewis, and Jailton Almeida. Let's get into it. First up, Eduardo Mora. She took on Montserrat Conejo in her first UFC fight. She ran through the girl she fought on Contender Series. She dusted Montserrat Conejo, who did get another contract after, I think, for taking the fight, even with the weight miss that Eduardo Mora had. I think she was kind of rewarded for that. She called out Diana Belbitsa. I'm here for it. Why not run it? She's obviously a girl that's going to be a problem in this division. She might not be like the most technical striker, but her striking's not bad by any means, and she's a big girl. She's going to have power, and the grappling obviously is what she's in there to do. It's going to be really hard for a lot of girls to handle that, I think, especially considering she's going to be bigger than most of them. She's huge for 115 pounds. We saw she missed weight. She made weight for Contender Series, if I'm not mistaken, so we know she can make the weight. Belbitsa's coming off of her loss to Karolina Kowalkiewicz. It was her first shot at the rankings, which she got after a loss to Gloria DePaula, so it's kind of weird. But she took some time off, came back, fought Kowalkiewicz, lost. And I just think this kind of makes sense at where they both are. Neither of them are really up near the rankings at this point. It just makes sense for Eduardo Mora's next fight, next step in her career. And that would be if I won't even say I would pick Eduardo to win that fight. So if somehow Diana was able to do that, that would be a pretty solid win on her resume against a girl who's run through her first two opponents. Next up, Denise Gomes. She lost to Angela Hill. She kind of blew her load early in the first few rounds, looking for those big power shots. And obviously, Angela Hill's got the cardio. She was there to put a pace on Denise. It worked well. She mixed in the grappling. She did pretty good. I think there's two good options here you could go with, and I'd be cool with either one. The first one, this is the one I thought of first, so this is the one first I would make. Pereira Rodriguez. She fought back in April the 15th. She lost to Jillian Robertson. It was her first attempt at the rankings, just like Denise Gomez just had her first attempt at the rankings versus Angela Hill. They both fell short. Both put up a decent fight. They're both good fighters, so I think this would be a fun fight to make. And and to be honest, whoever wins is relatively close to the rankings. Maybe only another fight after that, and they could get another ranked attempt. Both girls are pretty good. And then the next opponent I thought of that you could go with for Denise Gomes or Gomez. I guess I didn't put it in. Emily Ducote. I don't know why I didn't put it in. I meant to. I think Emily Ducote, if Pereira Rodriguez isn't available at the same timing as Denise, or for whatever reason you can't make this matchup, Ducote would be fine. She was coming off of 2 losses. Then she fought her last fight, took on Ashley Yoder, and won it with quite ease. It wasn't like a difficult fight for her. She breezed through Yoder, won a unanimous decision, and that was in October, so not long ago at all. And they're both looking to climb. I think Ducote, her only losses are to some pretty good girls, so I just think it kind of makes sense at where they are, same as this Pereira Rodriguez one. But yeah, I'd go with Pereira Rodriguez first if that's not available. Emily Ducote. Next up, the winner of that matchup against Denise Gomes, Angela Hill. She just keeps knocking down these young contenders. She's fought. She's on a 4-fight win streak. Oh no! This is her opponent that I match made for. I can't remember. I was just looking at her Tapology, but she's fought all her wins recently are against some good young, or maybe not young, but up-and-comers, girls coming up into the rankings, and she's knocked them all off. Her only loss was to somebody back in the rankings, and here we are. She beats Denise Gomes, knocks off another up-and-comer. Now she should get to fight back in the rankings, and I think somebody who's relatively, or maybe not new to the rankings, but was in the rankings, fought outside, got her win. She deserves a ranked fight as well, Karolina Kowalkiewicz. I think this is perfect. I think Kowalkiewicz is 15. Angela Hill's a few spots above her. I think this makes sense. They both just beat girls outside the rankings, so they really can't fight up too much, but They're both in that 10 to 15 area, so I think this makes a lot of sense. The winner would obviously get to fight up, and the loser would have to either defend their spot or, if they're kicked out of the rankings, work to get back into it. But I like this fight. This would be a very high-paced striking match, and obviously they're both decent grapplers, so it would be interesting to see how that would play out if either one decides to mix in the grappling. Yeah. Next up, Vitor Petrino, undefeated in the UFC. I believe he's 3-0 or 4-0 now. I think it's 3-0. And then also, obviously he had his Contender Series win against, I think his name was Bellato, who also just won on a Contender Series this past year, so he'll be in the UFC soon. I think he just kind of keeps taking that step up. We fought Modestas Bukauskas. We take another step up. Ian Cutelaba. He is coming off of a win against Tanner Boser. Before that, 3 losses in a row. He got finished in all 3. And he's kind of been in and around the bottom of the 205 rankings for a bit now. He gets that fight with Tanner Boser, was coming down from heavyweight, cleans him up in the first round pretty easy. And I think both guys are looking to try and win a fight to get into the rankings. They're both relatively close, I'd say, maybe 1 or 2 wins for each of them, and they could at least get a shot at the rankings. So I think you make this matchup. Whoever wins is that step closer. Whoever loses would definitely need to rattle off a few wins for sure. But I like this matchup. I think it would be fun. Both guys have big power. We know how aggressive and crazy Cutelaba is, and Vitor is a relatively patient guy. He looks to pick his shot. He can be a little bit slow and lumbering, but he's also got the grappling. You can see him improving on that, starting to mix it in his previous fight before Modestas, and we know young Cutelaba is going to come in and try and take you down and smash you on the ground. So I think this would be an interesting matchup. Definitely one of these guys would be getting finished, and the winner would get to look up towards the rankings most likely. Next up, we have Elvis Brenner. He just knocked out Kenan Krzyzewski. Possibly, it's at least a knockout of the year contender. I know a lot of people have been saying that, but I think it's true. It was spectacular. He threw 2 big hooks, right hook, left hook, and the left hook just caught him right behind the ear, flat, face down on the cam. It was pretty sick. He's obviously moving up. He's beaten some good guys. His first fight was against Zubaira Takugov. He gets that win. Then he gets to fight Gurem Kutateladze. Gets that win. He was losing the fight, but finds that 3rd round knockout. It was a pretty sick fight. That was a back and forth war for sure. It was super bloody, super fun fight, and Elvis Brenner prevails. And then obviously he comes out here, gets this big knockout against Kenan. I know a lot of people are shouting for him to fight pretty high up, and I think it's well deserved. He's obviously got the talent. Very good grappler. Obviously his Muay Thai is getting better. So I think this would be a really fun fight. Thiago Moises, 2-3 in his last 5, and he's coming off of a round 2 loss to Benoit Saint Denis, who fights this weekend against Matt Frivola at UFC 295. Sick card. I can't wait. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But yeah, coming off of that loss against Benoit, obviously he's going to have to be fighting down a bit, try and look to rebuild that win streak, or try and put together a win streak at least, to push back towards the rankings where he's been in and out of. So obviously he's fought some good guys, and I just think it would be a really good test for Elvis Brenner. I think a lot of people thought, including myself, that he was going to lose to Kutateladze, and he was on his way to doing that, but finds the win in the end in round 3. He's able to get it done. He's a grimy, gritty type of fighter. It's great chin, obviously, and doesn't give up. The dude is sick. So this would definitely be a fight that would put him in a good position after that, to maybe not get a ranked fight right after, but maybe there's one more win he would need if he's able to get the win over Thiago. And if Thiago's able to get it done, that would be a good win to have on his resume, stopping a younger up-and-comer who's been tearing through the rankings recently. So I think this would be a sick fight. I'd love to see it maybe next year, whenever Thiago's ready, to be honest, because he got finished in his last fight, so it would really depend on him. Next up, Kyle Braulio. He just beat Abus Magomedov. He's as close to the rankings, I'd say, as you can be without being in the rankings. He's on a 5-fight win streak, plus his Contender Series win. Or, not a 5-fight win streak, a 5-fight win streak in the UFC. And then before that, his Contender Series win. I think there's I think he deserves a ranked fight. I think he's very talented. He may not be everybody's favorite because he's like slow and methodical. He talks about how much he wants to be the smartest fighter in the UFC. So I mean, it might not be the most appealing style to everybody, but it's very slow and methodical, and he gets the wins. He's obviously a very smart fighter, and his striking continues to improve, and we know he's a menace on the ground. Probably should have gotten the finish versus Abus in the third, but what can you do? He wasn't able to find it. Two matchups I think you could go with. Anthony Hernandez, number 15 at the moment. I think this would be a sick fight. Obviously, both guys are improving on the feet, and both guys are great on the ground, so I think this would be a really fun stylistic matchup. We'd see some cool grappling exchanges. And like I said, they're both getting better on the feet. They both have decent power, so it would be interesting there. And then if you can't get this one done, I'd love to see him fight the loser of this fight. Obviously, the winner would have to fight up Brendan Allen taking on Paul Craig. I think it's at the end of this year at some point in December. It's a main event for a fight night, I believe. Paul Craig coming down to 185 from 205, and he looked pretty good in his debut. So I'd love to see the winner of this fight obviously fight up in the rankings, and the loser take on Kyle Braulio getting his first ranked fight. So either Anthony Hernandez, the 15 rank, or the loser of Brendan Allen versus Paul Craig. I think both would be pretty fun fights. And for this fight too, I was talking about how for Anthony Hernandez, getting better on the feet, great on the ground. Paul Craig, maybe not the best on the feet, but another great grappler, so that would be really interesting for Kyle. And then Brendan Allen, very well-rounded, pretty good Muay Thai striking, and obviously we know he's got the submission game as well. So I think all three of these options, whoever loses this or Anthony Hernandez, that would be a pretty fun fight, regardless of who Kyle's taking on. But yeah, I think he needs to get in the rankings, so one of these guys. Next up, Ismail Bonfim. People throwing around the term fraud checked. I hate that. Was, if I'm not mistaken, undefeated before this. Maybe he had one loss on his record. I can't remember. But regardless, a really young guy coming up. He got thrown to a dog quite soon in his career. Obviously, he'd beaten some decent guys that had been in and around the rankings before, like Trevin Giles. I can't remember his debut. Munir Lazez, obviously that guy's not great in and around the rankings, but the Trevin Giles one was a decent win. He gets thrown to fight Nicholas Dalby, kind of like they're trying to fast track him to the rankings because Dalby had been on this nice win streak. He's only lost once since 2018, so that was always going to be a tough fight. I think this is kind of a reset for him. He needs to put together a decent little win streak. There's no reason to rush this guy. He's obviously very talented. He'll get to the rankings when he gets there. Let's not rush him again. But I think Carlston Harris would be a good one. Carlston's 4-1 in the UFC, 3 finishes, 1 unanimous decision. His only loss is to Shavkat Rakhmonov. So obviously he's beating the guys that are, I mean, maybe not the super high level, but wasn't able to beat Shavkat, who is near the top 5 in the welterweight rankings right now. So that is always going to be a tough fight, but Carlston's looking good. I think it would just be a good reset for Ismail if he's able to get this win, which I would probably favor him. But obviously Carlston's got the tools. He's got big power, crazy submission game. He was getting dominated by Jeremiah Wells in his last fight, on the way to losing a 30-27 on all 3 judges' scorecards, I would assume. And he finds that Hail Mary guillotine, if I'm not mistaken, and chokes out Jeremiah Wells. It was a sick finish after, it was like a Hail Mary. He got it. But yeah, I just think this would be decent competition. He needs to get some wins back under his belt, and if Carlston's able to get it done, that's another really good win on his resume as he looks to progress. Next up, the guy who beat Gabriel Bonfim, Nicholas Dalby. Like I said, I talked about it a little bit before. He's lost 1 fight since 2018. I believe he's on a 5-fight win streak now. Another guy who's very, very close to the rankings. And I think he deserves a ranked fight. Somebody who's in the rankings that I think everybody's a little iffy, questionable on, who also fought on this card, Rinat Fakhretdinov. He's at 170 pounds right now. He's the number 15 rank, which is a little questionable, but he's there. I think you give this fight to Nicholas Dalby. These guys both fought on the same card. They'll be on a relatively similar time schedule. Like, I know Rinat was in a 3-round war, but it didn't seem to take too much damage. Who knows if he needs a bit more time, but I think Dalby would jump at this opportunity. I think it's a very winnable fight for him, and I think obviously it would be a big test for Renat, because I think a lot of people were super high on him, and this fight against Eliseu kind of brought it back down to a realistic level. I personally think Nicholas Dalby would probably be able to get this one done, but it would be a fun fight. Get Nicholas Dalby in the rankings. He definitely deserves it. Next up, Derrick Lewis. I don't have too much to say about this one. It's heavyweights. You kind of just match him up with who's available and in and around them. But both guys coming off of a loss to Jailton Almeida. Derrick Lewis was able to stretch it out all 5 rounds. Jairzinho, I believe it was round 1. I have it. Yeah, round 1 he got choked out. I'm pretty sure. I didn't write if it was a choke or a TKO, but I'm pretty sure he was able to find the choke. Jairzinho not able to stretch it out as long. I mean, there's not much like talk about this to make sense. It is what it is. They're heavyweights, both big punchers, both big guys. They're gonna go out there and bang. One of them goes down. I think it would be a really sick fight. Just it's a more winnable fight for Derrick Lewis. Obviously, he's always gonna have trouble against these guys that are super well rounded or super good grapplers. Same with Jairzinho probably, just because he's a pure kickboxer. So I think these guys would go out there and bang it out, and whoever lands the big shot first would get the win. And then lastly, Jailton Almeida. Again, not too much to say about this one. He was supposed to be fighting Curtis Blades. Derrick Lewis takes it on short notice, flies all the way to Brazil. And I think he probably should have been able to get Derrick Lewis out of there. His ground and pound game seems to be not good. I don't want to say atrocious, but it's just not good. I don't even, like, he doesn't seem to really hurt guys on the ground with his ground and pound. I don't know. It's weird for such a big guy, but obviously he's always looking for the submissions. That's where he wants to be. But yeah, definitely needs to work on the ground and pound. And I think this would be the real first like pushback he would get in a fight. Curtis Blades, a very good wrestler himself, so I think that would be tough for Jailton. And Curtis will definitely have the advantage on the feet, at least from what we've seen so far. It would be a real moment to see what Jailton, how good he actually is, because if he's able to go out there and out-grapple Curtis Blades, that definitely shows he really belongs up in that top 5, because Curtis Blades has only lost to like the huge punchers of the division, Francis Ngannou twice, Derrick Lewis, Sergey Pavlovich. Everybody else he's beaten. So I think this would be a solid test for both guys to be, a solid test for both guys. Both would get to show off who's the better grappler, and I think if Curtis is able to keep it standing, he has quite the advantage on the feet, and I think he would definitely use that advantage if he's able to keep it standing. But yeah, that's matchmaking for UFC Sao Paulo. This weekend, we've got a sick card. I was hyping up UFC 294, and it ended up being maybe not disappointing, but didn't live up to the hype everybody thought it was. I'd be hard-pressed to see this do the same. Like, one of Pavlovich and Aspinall is getting finished. Most likely, one of Jiri and Alex are getting finished. It's big punchers all around. We've got Benoit Saint Denis versus Matt Frivola, which is going to be a banger. And there's some sick fights on the prelims and stuff. I'll talk about those tomorrow in my predictions and bets video. But for now, subscribe, drop a like. Peace.